This is a lesson on explanations for forgetting. So, interference. If you read this stem, Ben's having problems with learning psychology. Every time he learns a new one, he seems to stop being able to remember the ones he learnt before and gets the details mixed together. But he has the opposite problem in maths, where he keeps trying to solve problems in the way that he was taught at GCSE, not the way he was taught at A-level. In both situations, Ben is forgetting, but notice he's forgetting for different reasons. So if you have a look at it in psychology, he's forgetting because new information gets in the way of old information. But in maths, the old information is getting involved in the new information. This is called interference, and that's what we're going to look at today. So these are two problems that are caused by some type of interference. So the objectives for today's lesson are to explore interference theory. So there are two theories named on the AQA spec for forgetting: proactive and retroactive interference, which is what we're going to look at today, and retrieval failure due to the absence of cues. If we look at the multi-store model of memory, we know that LTM has an unlimited capacity and memories have a duration of a lifetime potentially, but we haven't really looked at what happens when information is forgotten, because we do forget and if it's in our short-term memory, we forget very quickly. So if you have a look in the red here, it says, are the memories gone, i.e. availability, or probably more probable, can we just not reach them, accessibility. So interference is the idea that one memory disturbs in some way the ability to recall another. So it could be forgetting, or it could be distortion, or it could be both. And the more similar the memories are, the more likely we are for interference to happen. So this is the first type of interference, proactive. Now, there isn't actually an easy way of remembering this, but I've tried at the bottom to put something in place. So pro, forward. In short, you've just got to learn these. So proactive is when previously learned information interferes with the new information you're trying to store. So for example, with Ben at the start of this, he wasn't able to carry out calculations using the A-level method because the GCSE maths method was interfering. So previous information was interfering. So for example, you have difficulties learning the names of your students in your psychology class. You keep remembering students in a previous class. So that's where, if you like, an old memory interferes with a new memory. Retroactive interference is the opposite to that. That's when a new memory interferes with an older one, retro, backwards. Now, again, you just have to learn these. So this is when you've learned something new and then you can't remember how you did something previously. I would imagine that proactive is most likely, but retroactive. So for example, you have difficulties remembering the names of students in your class last year because you've learnt new names this year. And that's probably something that happens a lot to teachers. But these are things that you've probably experienced a lot, you've just probably never realised that this is what they're called. So, think about this. If you call your new girlfriend your old girlfriend's name, which type of interference is this? Proactive or retroactive? Proactive is old interfering with new. Retroactive is new interfering with old. Try to say it until you get it right. It's difficult, this. You just have to remember it, and it's really hard, to be honest, to remember. And one of the biggest things here with AQA is that people mix them up that much that this is one of those that there isn't really any leeway. You've got to get this right. Okay, so have a look at this. To illustrate the difference between the two types of interference, imagine you've learnt to drive a car in the UK. You may actually drive, so you may actually do this, or you may not have experienced this at all. You've learnt to drive on the left-hand side of the road. Then you fly to Spain, and therefore you drive on the right. This is one example of interference. When you then return to the UK, driving out of the car park, you find yourself driving on the right. Another example of interference. So can you identify which is proactive and which is retroactive? So remember, proactive is old interfering with new. So old interfering with new. So that's what would happen when you try to drive in Spain. The old memory of the UK would interfere with the new. So that would explain this part. When you return to the UK and drive out the car park and you're driving in the right-hand lane, that would be retroactive. Because if we just go back to this, that is new interfering with old. Okay. Can you clearly describe both proactive and retroactive interference? And I've put complete interference booklet, but can you complete any of the key terms in the booklet? Can you read the pages from the textbook? And can you start to have a look at any evidence from lab studies and any evidence from real life studies? Start to think about the strengths and weaknesses of interference theory, and that's what the next session will be on. As always, please message with any questions.